Good evening and welcome back to another edition of Beyond the Backstage Pass. I am your host, Vince Edwards. You may know me from Sound Image Productions. I also have a couple closed roadie groups on Facebook, one called Death by Loadout, another one called The Backstage Pass. Come check us out. This evening with me, I have my one and only dear good friend and co-host, Kyle Thomas. How are you, Kyle?
Great, man. Another day, another dog biscuit.
Yeah, dude, I swear to God, I'm just gonna... All right, the dog biscuits are just for you. I'm not going to try to cut you off on the dog biscuits, but I'm worried about your weight and your health, man.
I'm good. I'm healthy. I'm happy. It's sunny out. I'm getting more runs in. We got our first round of vaccines around the whole shop, pretty much. So.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that. I kind of forgot about it, but not for the first day or two when, it sucked a little bit. But yeah, it's a good thing. It gives you a weird sense of like you can move around a little bit more. You can feel a little more, safer. I don't know.
Yeah, we try to stay out of the politics, right? Like you always say.
Yeah, I'm not going there. But
I think it's a beautiful thing that we all come to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
We need to at least make this happen for the betterment of our industry and make the sacrifice, regardless of how people feel.
It's funny, we were, right before we went on, I was looking at some social media, and I have to approve some of the posts that go on the page, otherwise these guys would run amok.
Right.
And so, and I was noticing how many folks are putting up, it's been 414 days since he's sitting behind an SD7 or, and I was like,
doesn't it make you smile,
it makes you happy, and so I always let those go through because to kind of encourage folks to stay in the game and hang on. And, we're starting to see the light, so please be positive and realize, it's going to get better for all of us here, kind of. Across the country in a slightly uneven way, but it's happening right now. And we need to get Mikey a cough drop, that poor guy. Mikey, you ain't got the COVID, do you? No, Mikey's okay.
No, he's good. He's got his first shot, like I just said.
Oh, well,
Got to start on it.
Yeah, right on.
Well, speaking of that, me and you sat in the boardroom a couple days ago and listened to Scoville's new group that specifically kind of talked about where our industry is going, didn't we?
Yes, that was always good to check in with Bob Scoville. We're going to start including a new segment in the show as kind of a catch-up segment. We haven't named it yet, but it's something like that, checking in, catching up, and on guests that have already been on that are prolific dudes in the game. And, of course, Robert Scoville being Tom Petty's guy and Def Leppard and all of his amazing accomplishments. We wanted to check in with him because he's got two projects he's currently doing. Plus, he's an employee of Avid Consoles, so he's our go-to guy in many things and for training and stuff. But he's got the lab and the lounge. Tell us what he told us about that.
Well, the lounge was really interesting. I mean, me and you always sit kind of in back and weigh out the situation before you chime in. So it's good to kind of just see the room. But the people there were really genuine and shared their concerns and everything else. It was a really positive group.
A lot of heavy hitters, too. A lot of interesting cats that got the room to talk because they've been there and done that. And, the varied kind of thoughts and feelings about certain situations. Stuff we don't tend to get into much on the show. But if you wanted to and you kind of talk about the nuts and bolts and what different folks' forecasts or when we're coming back out, it's a great place to show up.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
he's been such a big help, like you were saying, just doing our training over the past year. It's great to see his other kind of content being developed and pushed in a really positive way. So.
Well, that's all that Bob does. Robert Scoville, I can call him Bob. I don't suggest you do it because that will be a problem. But I've worked it out over the many years of busting his balls that he lets me get away with it somehow. It's when I call him Bobby that he really struggles, but, he can't do anything about it. But I love the man, and he provides an incredible service. He's an incredibly talented, extraordinarily talented, and he really has a way of teaching that is very accessible. A lot of us, some of us aren't as patient as others, and Bob's got a delivery system and a way of putting information across that folks in different levels of the game can kind of access it, and that's an invaluable, skill and offering from him. So I highly suggest you guys go check out Bob Scoville's The Lab and The Lounge. They are two separate things. One is for more of a school place, another one is more of like, it sounds like The Lounge. The Lab is more of the kind of get some information. The Lounge is more like a bunch of us knuckleheads get together, a bunch of audio guys, and these are some of the best. Motley Crue's guys, Iron Maiden's guys. It's a bunch of guys in there, and we get together and we shoot the shit, and it's a very interesting place to be. So
yeah, totally.
Highly recommend it if you can do it.
Awesome, brother.
Right on, man. Listen, I got a big show here. I'm going to just jump right into it. We're taping this show tonight, so I'm just going to get right out in front of that. Some of these things are a little in advance. We talked about earlier in the show. We did another show earlier today, but you know, Al Schmidt's passing. These are things that won't be revealed until May 14th when this show airs. So thanks for being with us early. We're probably going to have to change up some of the ways we do some of the shows. We'll try to do as many live as possible because I prefer to do the show live. There's a certain energy that comes with it, kind of you can't get it wrong kind of vibe that I thrive on, not unlike doing a regular, you know, concert. And so that's kind of the reason we've always done it that way, to our you know, peril a few times. Because, you know, getting alive, there's not a lot of do-over moments. So, but that makes it more fun for me. Yeah. While we're doing that, we have another show airing tonight. Today is April 29th, so the Great Price Show is going to go out. So my good friend Kyle Thomas is going to be handling the comments for that as we get into this show. So he's going to be over there. I'm going to be over here, and I'm going to get with my guest right now.
All right. See you later.
You have fun with it, brother. All right, guys. You've turned in on a very special night. I have a very special treat for you. I have two of my dear friends, people that I absolutely adore, have come in. I love these people. They have a storied history in the rock and roll game. They both, I want to say 75, they both creeped in and got up to all kinds of stuff. I interviewed Jan Alejandro earlier, and that's a show I'm going to keep in my back pocket for a special day to bring out, and it's the history of the early 70s kind of pirate-style Rhodian. But we're here to talk about tonight is a very special case company, a company we use religiously. And sometimes I found I had a couple of Chinese cases in here, and I felt shameful. It hurt my soul a little bit. I didn't even realize one of my manufacturers sent them to me. I'm going to spank that son of a bitch later, but we won't get into that, right? So we rolled out the Big Daddies, okay? This is Jan and Al Cases. I love these people. Please help me welcome them tonight. The adorable, the very kind and sweet Muffie Alejandro and Jan Alejandro. Hello, guys. It's so good to see you.
Thank you for having us.
Little outfit
Thank
tonight,
you.
I have to tell you.
Thank you
All
very
right, we're
much.
going to have some fun with this. I was digging around and something, and Muffie sent me a little note. It was very cute. And it was about a night that you guys, when you first moved out to LA, you know, and you guys, I guess you went around and you had a credit card or something. And you ended up at Chateau Marmont, which is a very famous spot in LA. I mean, you know, there's a lot of history there with, you know, the Doors and, you know, like we could go on and on. But, and I guess Muffie was thinking about marriage and
No. He was, no.
Okay, well, I know this much. One night, there was a giant bouquet with a card in it. And I wanted to know, and I got that much of the story, but I didn't know what the card said. What did the card say?
So you have to back up first.
Back it up. Drive me
Jan and
around.
I went out for dinner with another couple,
Okay.
and they were all drinking, and I do not drink. So during that dinner, Jan asked me to marry him. And when we got home, I said to him, well, I have to think about that, you know. He was drunk. And I didn't realize that the next morning he had no recollection whatsoever about
naughty
it.
boy.
But my father had died, and I was seeing a therapist, and I told the therapist that he'd asked me to marry him. And she goes, well, what did you say? And I said, I told him I had to think about it. She said, well, what's there to think about? And I said, well, it wasn't the package I was expecting in terms of the man I was going to marry, you know? She kind of gave me this withering look, you know? And I kind of, the minute it was out of my mouth, I knew it was a really dumb thing to say. And it was like, he was perfect, right?
Pretty great.
So at about that time, I came home and he said, what if I told you we were going to move to LA? And I said, what if I told you I didn't want to? And he goes, well, I would tell you I'm moving. And I said, when are you going to move? And he goes, tomorrow.
So naughty.
Right? And literally tomorrow we were in LA moving. It was like that fast, right? So it took about 2 or 3 weeks to get to the point where, you know, everything was moving down there, and I was driving down there, and I called him up and I said, you know, where am I supposed to come to? And he told me where to go to. You know, I didn't know what the Chateau Marmont was. I had been in LA once when I was like 13. And I show up at this hotel. In those days, the Chateau Marmont was not like it is today. It was kind of a dump. Yeah. Actually.
But it was still
It was a very famous dump.
Absolutely.
But it was a dump. And it was kind of a rock and roll hotel. And,
Absolutely.
you know. So.
This is what, 1975?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1975.
Mm-hmm.
And and I go up to our room, and he's rented this really big room with a living room and a bedroom and the dumpiest bathroom because I'm a rock and roll girl, so it's like all that really matters is that you get a big bathroom with a really great shower and a big sink, right?
Yeah.
And it's a tiny sink and an old-fashioned bathtub, and it's like getting water. He's getting water all over the floor, and I walk in, and it's like, oh God, And I walk in the door, and there's this giant bouquet of roses. I mean, it's like this tall, right? And there's a card in it, and all it says is, "I'm ready whenever you are." And I go in the bathroom, and I'm wearing like, it's like 100 degrees. It's July. It's like 190 degrees in the valley. And I just drove my VW with no air conditioning, and I'm dripping wet. And he's in the shower, right? No shower for me. And I walk in and I say to him, "What does this card mean?" Because it's like, like I wouldn't move to LA with somebody unless I were getting married or something.
Yeah.
And his response is, "Well, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell you."
Oh, you guys.
And that was my proposal.
There you go.
That was the proposal he remembered. That was the proposal he remembered.
So we went over to Santa Monica and Western, and if you know this place, it's like the Tenderloin district.
Yes.
Right? Or what? I don't know.
Pawn
What
shops, bars, really grubby little
we bought
liquor
our
stores.
wedding ring. We were so poor. That's where we bought our wedding rings.
Very cute, though.
And he lost his in Australia with David Bowie.
Sydney Harbor, sorry.
We're getting all
That's a different
bones.
story, man. That's a different story.
Oh, be judgmental. Go
Different
ahead,
show.
be as judgmental as you want to be.
What is the young guys chimed in?
But have you been married?
mind
Have
the
you
kids.
been
The
married
kids,
for
he's a-
47? Have you been
100%
together 47
no.
years?
Even 47 years old.
I know that.
30 fucking years old.
I know. He
You
doesn't-
really need to.
On this topic, you
careful now.
get nothing.
There's combined wisdom here. They could eat you for lunch.
This is true. I'm monitoring the comments.
We can eat both of you for lunch.
I might be a
The
little
question
more
we
of
get all the
a
time
meal,
is,
but yeah.
how have you stayed together and been in rock and roll? And it's very simple.
Tell me.
Don't come home that often and don't stay that long.
Oh, dude, see, that is a secret to, yeah, I understand completely.
Not really. But when he
Yin and
did
yang.
finally come home, oh my God, that was the hardest, right? That was really hard.
Well, yeah.
She always
We
used to
split
say,
up.
"This is not a
understand.
hotel, and I'm not the maid."
I mean, wherever it leaves his hand. I mean, to this day.
Yeah.
It's not.
No, it's very tricky. So if you live in the touring life, and you were out for what, about 6 years at this point when you finally came home, and
4 or 5.
4 or 5.
something like that. And I'm out 16, 17 when I finally rolled in, with all my bad habits, and people only had to deal with me for a couple days every other month. It's very easy to be in a relationship like that, and hard for some and easy for others. But yeah, man, when you finally come home and plant yourself, and like you bring all your bad habits and all your weirdnesses, that is tricky. So your story is actually very, very normal. It is not a weird story, and this show is really largely for roadies and people in the industry. And so they're going to relate. And especially with this last year, which has been extraordinarily tricky,
Right,
because many
for
of my friends are
everybody.
professional touring roadies,
Right.
Engineers, LDs, whatever they are. And so they've been sitting on their ass for 14 months, and I'm imagining their wives almost to the lady, and any of their men out there for the gals in our industry are probably like over it. They're just waiting for shows to come back. And
Yeah,
get
when are
them
you
back.
leaving?
But I just want you to know, I asked Robert Scoville about his marriage, right?
Well, Scoville's not exactly one of us. He's
Wait.
a little different.
No, actually, I got a great answer from him. They made a deal. They see each other every 3 weeks. One of them flies to the other one to see each other every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And one time he was saying, I don't know what to get her for her birthday. And I chimed in with, diamonds are nice. And he goes, don't you ever speak to me, speak to my wife about these things.
Stay away from my wife.
Just remember I said that. I did I promised I'd never speak to her about it.
That's very
I did
cute.
promise.
No, you know, Robert is
The best.
He's kind of one of the more civilized guys in the game. You know, there's a. I mean, this guy does triathlons. He's just.
I know.
He's
Wow.
a very
I know
special
him.
cat.
I know
and
him, and
he's
he's
got,
a
like I mentioned
wonderful
before,
guy.
he's got a really even demeanor and a way that he interacts with life.
He's a very special guy for one reason.
Yeah. How come? Because his woman?
He has this fantastic wife.
Oh, his woman rules. He loves her so much. He just put a thing up the other day about it, and it was a picture
know.
of when they first. Did you see that? And I said, "Yeah, you never stood a chance, brother." You were.
Did you ever see a picture of him when she married him?
Yeah, with all that hair.
Exactly, you know.
Those silly best. I love you, Bob. It's all good.
We love you, Robert. You're the best.
All right, let's move along. All right. So I mentioned you guys came up early days. I guess you worked in a production office. Is that?
I worked for David Rubinson and Friends.
It's kind of a big deal. A band manager, promoter.
He was a producer. He was primarily a record producer, and his engineer was the infamous Fred Catero.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it's hard to depends who you're talking to, famous or infamous, because he kind of operates in both lanes. Yeah.
He was the best.
And somehow you two guys came together because he was working for SIR. Your husband, Jan, was working for SIR, so he would, of course, deliver gear and kind of hang out. And I know your reception area was kind of a hangout for all these rock stars. It was the Tubes and all these different folks would come through.
No. I was working for David Rubinson, who had an office on Market Street.
Okay.
We had a storefront on the street floor, and then the offices were upstairs. So we were completely separate from the offices and all the politics. So, and the tour manager's office was on my floor, right behind my desk. So a lot of the artists would hang out in the reception area with me and with their tour managers, and he would drop the equipment off there for the production managers. Tour managers would be upstairs, you know, with management.
Sure.
And production and me would be downstairs. So now you know why I love production.
Yes, I do.
And then he hired me away
And so
for less money and more hours.
Yeah, I remember.
And he
saying
moved
that.
in.
Yeah, well, because you're pretty cute, obviously.
Well, no, he could.
Free
It was
rent.
easy rent, free tickets that he didn't have
And
to
you had
pay
a piano.
for, and I had a piano.
And I wasn't even a drummer.
Right,
We all know
right,
that.
because all the drummers loved me for some reason.
Well, I thought that was a reference to what's a drummer that
It is.
girlfriend-
Billy Cobham.
a drummer that what do you call a drummer who just broke up with his girlfriend? Homeless.
Well, in my
That's what I thought
case,
you were saying.
no, in my
Yeah,
case,
there
it was.
was.
It's a guy with a big house in Mill Valley.
All right. Well, so you guys came together and somehow you joined forces and went to SIR. Talked to SIR Studio Instrument Rental, of course, the great studio instrument rental. So what was the transition there, and how did that come together?
Okay, so with SIR, I was their janitor. And from janitor, they had an opening for a driver, so I did that. And then they had an opening for dispatcher, so I did that. And then I was promoted to studio manager. Well, at the time, there were like 2 little rehearsal studios and a sound stage, which really wasn't a sound stage at all, but it was a good-sized room. And it was super busy. So I thought, I really like this girl who works for David Rubinson. Maybe I'll offer her a job. Then that way I could see her and I have somebody to help me too, right? So called up with the offer. And I don't even know if we talked maybe about money, and it was obviously, you know, minimum wage, because that's what I was making too. She said yes, so that was perfect.
I said yes because David had just given tickets to everybody for the Pointers at the Circle Star, and you were the only one that could get me into that show.
Yeah, you were telling. I know this story. We're talking about the Pointer Sisters, right?
Right.
Right. And David had given out tickets to everybody in the building. Somehow you got missed, And you really wanted to see the show.
No, he point blank told me, no, you're just the receptionist.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Okay. I fucking hate that behavior.
I got back at him.
Yeah.
Well, and so you snatched her up, and you guys went to the Pointer Sisters
So
show.
what happened
but still,
was,
once you got there, you watched a couple songs.
Yeah.
In his seats.
So,
And then he came out from backstage and couldn't figure out how we got into those seats because his guest didn't show up.
So backing up a little bit, I go to make a delivery. I come in, I like her. She's crying. And I'm like, what's up? She goes, everybody got tickets to the Pointers but me. And I said, I can get into any venue in the Bay Area, which was true. Yeah. I could see jazz if I want to do it at the Keystone Corner, or I could go Keystone Berkeley, or I could go to any place and get in, any place.
Yeah.
And there was a place called the Boarding House. Does that ring a bell?
No, I think it's before my time.
We saw Bette Midler for free.
Oh my! And the Tubes
and the
played
Tubes.
there. Oh my
all the
God.
time, right?
It was like
and Tower of Power.
You got to look it up. Boarding House on
We saw all these
a Bush,
people.
I think it was. Anyway, what was I talking about?
That was a terrible.
Anyway,
venue,
I could get
by
into
the way.
any show, so I said.
You took her to the Pointer.
I said, hey. No, I said no. I can get us in. You know, right?
Right.
And I go and pick her up, and we go and talk to the guy at the backstage, and he knows me. He lets me in. I talk to the stage manager. He says, "I'll be right back. Let me go see what I can do." So I'm talking to Chuck Berry. He was opening up for this. So I'm backstage. There's nobody else but us. I'm talking to Chuck Berry, which is fucking great.
Yeah, legend.
And do that. And then you know, the guy comes over and he goes, hey, here's 2 tickets right in the front. I'm saying, cool.
Second row.
Chuck Berry plays. We're sitting in the front. It was great.
Yeah.
And her boss was like pissed.
And he spotted you.
Oh,
Well, they were his seats. There were 4 tickets.
Yeah.
He had, they never picked them up. You know, he was just going to walk out and sit down.
So
What does he
these are
need?
being unused.
Right.
Go use those
Here,
seats.
go use these seats.
Sure.
And I see this movement out of the corner of my eye, and I look over, and there's David and his wife, and he's like
Mad dogging.
glaring at me,
Yeah.
like, how the hell did you get in here?
Yeah.
But just to let everybody know, David Rubinson was a genius, and he had the best acts. Herbie Hancock, Pointer Sisters, and all these jazz musicians. He
Right.
really and he did great deals for them too as a manager.
All the Headhunters' biggest albums he produced.
Yeah, no,
You know.
nobody's taking anything from Dave.
Right. No,
you
he
know,
was a
and,
genius.
and he was a man of his time. So at that time, there was a certain way things were handled and done, and he, as a matter of fact, if anything, he kind of helped design how those things were done, and he created a lot of great deals and a lot of great things.
Oh, and he was smart enough to pick Fred Cotero as his engineer.
Exactly.
I mean, that there is no question in my mind that made all the difference in the world.
Well, you know, we all have good and bad. And
So,
it's just the nature of it.
I don't want to cut into all your questions there, but just while we were here, the main guys were Bill Graham, and
Frank, no,
no, your boss,
yeah, David.
David Rubinson, and the movie.
Yeah, I just can't.
The
The guy who made Apocalypse Now,
Coppola.
Coppola,
And
they were
Coppola.
all friends.
They were.
And
I mean, it
would
was
bounce
amazing.
between
Those
each other's
guys.
offices.
Yeah, this is a whole different
I
time.
mean, it was a whole different time. They were amazing.
Yeah, and I think that George Lucas was in that mix, and Spielberg too. They were all kind of.
Were they here in the
rap-
Bay
They weren't
Area?
here though. The David, Coppola, and Bill Graham were all here, and so they were that you know, and also Coppola's situation was not quite what it is today, you know, or it was in the interim.
Well, his movies, he was doing strange stuff,
Apocalypse.
THX and stuff. This is pre-apocalypse,
Well,
right?
Spending a shitload of money.
What he had just made American
Graffiti.
He was kind of an up-and-coming darling, and was in the process of selling Apocalypse, and we all know Apocalypse was not. It wasn't all that well received in the beginning. You know, he had a lot of problems. So yeah, he was definitely a hot director, but
still the early days of that.
It was the early days.
Yeah,
But that's when the first, what was it, on the Green?
Tavern on the Green.
No, concert.
Oh, Day on the Green.
Day on the, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, those are the first ones that we worked.
Amazing shows, huge shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to work the prison, what is it?
San Quentin.
San Quentin.
Yeah.
That was weird going into there.
Yeah, we've done a batch of shows for that.
Oh, God, isn't that, it's weird, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's
I've
it's
heard
another
interviews about Metallica, the Metallica show.
Yeah, it's not something that the prison likes to be advertised too much.
Exactly.
Because a big part of the population thinks that's coddling the prisoners. What people tend to forget is that San Quentin, as big and scary and bad as it looks, is actually a medium security prison for relatively well-behaved prisoners. And so it's because it's so old, you can't really put high-risk inmates in there because they'll break the fuck out. It's a 150-year-old prison.
It's also a terrible place to be in.
It's not a place you want the worst of the worst because they'll chuck you off the third story, the third.
Right.
And
so giving people something to look forward to, really.
Exactly.
You know, that's one of the things I've heard over and over again from people who've played there. That the gratitude.
It's not the whole audience. It's not the whole prison.
Right.
It's a certain group
they
of
feel
prisoners
a gratitude from that audience that they don't feel in a lot of other
BB
situations.
King, we did Santana there. Yeah.
Robbie told me that.
Yeah, it's what I thought was, God, these are the superstars of murder.
No, they aren't.
No, the superstars of
Charles
murder.
Manson and Sirhan and all those motherfuckers.
And Soledad, that's other prisons where those people.
Oh, yeah.
And they're extreme. They're a very different type prison system.
And Pelican Bay.
Pelican Bay
which
is
a
the
real
worst.
nightmare.
That's where you go end up at Pelican Bay because you murdered somebody. You end up at Pelican Bay because you murdered somebody in prison. That's where the bad prisoners go.
They probably don't have concerts
there. The people that they think they can't control. And the other thing is that in the prison world, they say that once you go to Pelican Bay, you're never coming out.
It's not entirely true. I actually know a gentleman who spent 16 years there. And what it mostly is you don't, it's a 23 and a half hour system. So basically there's you get a half hour of human interaction. And even that is just pushed into a yard that has a cyclone fence as a sky. It's four walls, and it's 5 times or 4 times the size of your cell. But you get to kind of roam around in it, and then they push you back in. You get 3 showers a week.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's very isolated. Some people say it will drive you crazy.
Well, in the early days,
Yeah.
that is what happened. People just went nuts in there.
Yeah, not everybody, not to the man, but yes, for the most part, that is true. It takes a very certain kind of constitution to be able to survive that. Yeah. But likely, if you're there, you've broken a bunch of rules before getting there that put you there. And so I don't know what that means, but that's usually how it works. You don't just go to Pelican Bay. I could kill everybody in this building right now, and they wouldn't put me in Pelican Bay. They would put me in Pelican Bay as after I got to Corcoran or one of the other Lodi, one of these other prisons, and then broke rules there, mostly attacking guards, hurting other inmates. That's when you go to Pelican Bay. It's a kind of prison of last resort.
I thought it was defined as anyway, it's not relevant.
Yeah, this is not a prison show. But thank you for bearing with us.
I can't wait to hear the Live at Pelican Bay album.
That's never going to happen.
Well, I wonder who it would be.
Okay.
Leonard Skinner. Moving on. Managing the studio at SIR. You know, I know when you first got there, it wasn't quite the hot rod that it became. You know, it was kind of on the lower tier of places to record in the city, and you guys changed that around. What did you do?
Rehearsals. There was only rehearsals.
Yeah, there was no recording. It wasn't soundproof enough to record at.
So how did you make it a place where?
For openers, we cleaned it.
Yeah, that's a good start.
It was just filthy. I mean, we spent weeks just cleaning it.
Wow.
And then we had there was an article in Billboard magazine because we were able to spectrum analyze the room and you put whatever acoustical tiles
on it.
Yeah. And then
we decorated it.
And then we had like really at the time great PA, Yeah. It was like one of the best Yamahas you could get, which is probably so fucking small, It's like.
And that just kind of spread out amongst the musicians, and they.
Yeah,
Well, we
it
also
was-
made it pleasant
yeah.
for them. You know, we cleaned things up. We fixed the pool table. We brought in, you know, we made sure that the vending machines were stocked and cleaned, and
I mean,
you
we
know,
have stories.
The tubes loved the
we have-
vending
yeah,
machines.
Fee
they loved
Bill
them.
would like be able to get it for free.
No, that's
like
not
the-
exactly what he did. What he
Okay.
did was he figured out that
You
if
guys
you
did this whole show.
yeah, he was quite an ingenious guy.
Bill is absolutely.
Yeah.
He's a heavy dude.
Yeah.
One of a kind.
You know, he's really tall and he has very, very long arms
That's right.
and very long fingers.
Yeah.
So what he would do is he would drop a nickel into the machine as though he were going to pay all the money.
Yeah.
And he would hit the coin return at the same time. And he discovered that when he did that, you could open the flap at the bottom. And because he had such long arms, he could do that.
Both things at once.
Both things at once.
Sure.
And hold down that coin return. And then he could reach up inside the machine and start pulling out the sodas. And he would empty the entire soda machine and hand out all the sodas to anybody that walked in the room while he was there doing that.
Tricky bastard.
It got crazy one
Well,
time.
but that wasn't all that was going on.
One
They
time,
were
Carlos
also
Santana got up on the pool table and he was doing like a Zorro thing with a pool stick. I mean, it just crazy shit.
got really out there.
We had Tower
It's
of
like
Power.
midnight, right? They're dancing on the pool table. They're going through the vending machines and emptying them all out. And this is supposed to be rehearsal.
Yeah.
It was great.
Or I get a call from Muffie and she's like, I can't get rid of this guy. He won't leave.
He's drunk. He had consumed. Let me put it to you this way. He had consumed an entire bottle of Jack in about 3 hours. He was British, so he could drink. He actually had me load a Hammond B3 organ on the stage. Turned all the lights down really low and just sat on the sofa and drank an entire bottle of Jack.
What did the B3 have to do with anything?
Not a thing. He just wanted a place to drink.
Okay.
But I'm not a drinker. I'm not used to dealing with alcoholics. I did not know what to do to get him out of there. Jan was at home taking a very rare night off. So I called him up and I said, I don't know how, I keep telling him it's time to go. It's Sunday. It was about 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
So he said, oh, it's very simple. He's drunk, turn the lights on. They don't like the lights. And I went in there and I said, Jack, it's time to go. And I turned the lights on and he starts screaming, is my cab here? Which we hadn't discussed. And I went, oh yeah, your cab is here. And I rushed to the desk and I called a cab. And it took him long enough to get out to the street that the cab was actually there when he got out there. And that was it. I was finally able to go home, but it was like 3 in the morning by the time
Who was it?
I'm not going to tell you.
Oh, yeah. He
No,
was
I'm not.
the bass player for the Cream.
We,
It's all right. He's
awesome.
even alive.
I don't know. That's why I wasn't going to say.
There's a few good stories. So anyway, we had like the best of the best.
Nikki Hopkins was
Nikki
there.
Hopkins.
Tower of Power.
Journey was just starting out when we started. They were
is
just, I don't
pre-Stephen
even,
Perry?
their
No,
album,
they had never been on tour. They had just made their first album.
Steve, right,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
It sounds like it was a lot of fun.
fantastic.
Graham Central Station was there.
That's where we first met Benny Collins.
Benny Collins, the legendary
Yeah.
Benny Collins.
So
He
for
would
those of
come
you
in,
who
it was
don't
great.
know Benny said that managing roadies was like,
Hurting.
you say it,
No, man, this is your.
corralling Mustangs.
I've heard him say way worse.
Oh, let's hear it.
Well, no, because listen, Benny. So you mentioned if you don't know Benny Collins. Benny Collins is one of a kind guy. You know, he had he was the rare African American in the game. He was a big man.
At the time that we first met him, he may have been the only African American in the game.
Fair. That's not necessarily probably untrue. But my God, was he good. And he's one of the best stage managers I've ever known. He was probably one of the best production managers. He put on some of the biggest shows, Michael Jackson, Madonna, David Bowie. I mean, let's list Journey. He kind of got he cut his teeth with Journey.
He started with Graham Central Station, and then he went, and he realized that if he stayed in black music, this was going to be his life, so he jumped to Journey.
Yeah, it was a brilliant move, and he excelled in Journey. One of the first people that ever scared the living crap out of me was Benny screaming. It was nothing like having him bark at you. It could really send a fear through your body, and he was extraordinarily. When he loved you, he loved you. When he was mad at you, he stayed mad at you for a minute, and you just kind of had to.
But he couldn't stay mad very long.
No, exactly. And his thing was always about lifting you up, you know, bringing you up to the level he thought you could be at if you weren't performing at that level. And he was an extraordinary good guy. He was really good to my brother. He had an incredible career. One of the best last loadouts I've ever attended was Benny's. Everybody was there. This was, if a bomb would have went off, we would have lost a quarter of the record business. You know, it was extraordinary. Yeah. The love that was there. I openly wept, and that's not something I really do. Just as we were doing the reminiscing part, and
the most beautiful eulogy was John Firestone's.
Yeah, that was
just amazing
really
eulogy. And of all the people who we've lost. When they did his memorial, there must have been 300 people in that room, and there wasn't a dry eye in the room.
No,
everybody was in tears.
Yeah.
It was a room filled with the top touring personnel.
That's right.
From around the world. It was just the most, that gives you, and there aren't a lot of touring people that you can say that about.
Well, but that's how much he was respected. That was the impact. He touched a lot of lives.
From Jake Berry. To John Featherstone, to all the Bay Area people.
All of them. Herbie was there. Herbie Herbert was there.
Everybody was there.
It was a who's who.
I mean, it was an amazing event, and I saw friends I hadn't seen in years and years and years because of that.
It was very sweet.
And I miss Ben. I have to say, this is the moment to say, there is not a day that goes by that I don't think about Benny. There is not a day that I wish that I couldn't talk to Benny. I miss him.
Excuse me, my co-host is shitting the bed real hard right now. Help us out. So that's our other show that's airing right now. Can you make that not talk anymore? My poor guy.
Well, edit.
Did you lose your remote, bro? So we're
so
juggling.
much for Benny.
Well, no, this is not a subject we will just leave hanging. Benny was an extraordinary special person. He has affected all of our lives in a really meaningful way, and we miss him.
Yeah, we do.
That simple.
And so does everybody else.
Anybody
that
who
ever
worked
knew
with
him.
It's hard to explain it was like a papa. You know, he was just that guy. And if you're lucky and you work long in this career, you'll know a Benny type Collins person, and you'll be lucky too. And we miss him, and it's just that simple. Every so often we do a little show. I made a meme about him. I don't know if you saw that, but I have a meme that's one of Benny's famous sayings, and every so often I do a little rest in peace Benny thing just to kind of memorialize him, because he was that good, and he touched a lot of lives, and he changed this business.
He did.
You know, when he came into this business, bands, big giant shows, which Journey went out to really solidified the big giant show, the big stadium show. You know, and they've really got their juice from 78, 79, 80 in that area, Escape and those tours, Eclipse. And Benny really was able to bring that together in a cohesive way that made it so the audience experience was really exceptional. And the band experience and the crew experience. It was kind of, Benny was big on everybody winning.
Yeah.
He wanted, you could put 80,000 people in a building, and everybody from backstage to stage to audience.
Everybody won.
He wasn't happy unless everybody won. And he was a kind of a scientist at getting that done. Wow. And that is a science, and that is an art. And Benny was the master of it, and so he's missed. And you know, and it's I like sharing these moments. We have a lot of young folks that watch these shows, and there's a history to what we do, and there's a reason we do it the way we do it, because we believe in it. We're passionate about our career and our chosen field. And a person like Benny was a guy that helped us understand that this was something that could be a career, and that was to be taken seriously and done right.
I'm really glad you said that, because for a long time I was trying to write a book about all the people that really, I still want to do it. I had a great photographer, his name is Jim Brock, and we started out by interviewing people like Lonnie McKenzie, Jake Berry, Jim Digby, Buford Jones. And we wanted to do a coffee table photo book of rock and roll people, and underneath it put a timeline so that people could really understand how we went from an industry that literally, the first rock and roll show I ever saw was Ricky Nelson at a country fair that consisted of, there weren't even lights. There wasn't even really a sound. There was a tiny sound system that was exclusively to mic him singing, and just amplifiers for guitars. So it was like plug in the guitars and play.
Yeah, and try to match
and that
the
was
levels,
the entire exactly.
Yeah.
And the show, and when we were at SIR, it was more sophisticated than that, but I think it's fair to say it wasn't tremendously more. I mean, you didn't have speaker stacks like this.
Yeah, line array.
It was more like stacking up a bunch of speakers and hoping they didn't fall over.
That's right.
You know?
That's exactly right.
That's kind of what it was like. Except that you did have a mixing console.
Nothing like the consoles we have now.
But we were running enormous amounts of cable, you know, all over the place. The first thing anybody ever learned to do when they went in this business was they learned how to solder cable and how to roll it up.
That's right.
How to roll cable on your arm.
Don't do it. That was elbow up. No, over, under.
Over, under. Okay, whatever. Yeah. I haven't done it in a long time. But that's my point, is that that was the first thing. If you didn't learn that first, the thing that was really amazing about Jan and me, and we talk about this from time to time, is we never actually got to do a small tour, either of us. We never did anything.
You didn't have the club tours. You didn't do the van tour. That wasn't. Yeah, he kind of jumped right in.
His first tour was Iggy Pop with David Bowie playing keyboards.
Yeah.
And my first exposure was the Pointer Sisters and Herbie Hancock and the Headhunters.
Right.
And, you know, I loved it when Terry Garthwaite would come over to David Rubinson's office because it was so low key for a change, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't hysterical. And I think that people don't really realize that the guy that did the sound for Woodstock completely underestimated what it was going to take to do that show.
Yeah.
And today, to do a show like that takes a year or 2 years of planning to pull it off. And there is a history to this, and I would love to capture that history in people's own words. Talking to somebody like Buford Jones, who, when he went to work for Shoko,
extraordinary.
If you got to sleep in the van, the bunk above you was maybe 10 inches above your nose.
Right. That's exactly right.
Compared to a luxury bus.
If I had Buford here, I would just simply talk to him about his experience with Pink Floyd. I mean, the stuff that Buford's gotten up to, and I've reached out to him, and I think I will be able to get him on the show. He's an extraordinary cat. He's actually he's teaching in a college right now. And so Buford he's not going to be stopped. You know how
when
Buford
we interviewed Buford for the book.
That list you named would be really great for you. That's a great list.
When we interviewed Buford, the thing that he said that was just most incredible was how the front of house mixer is not crew, he's band.
Yeah.
How
he comes
that
from the fifth position, we call that.
How that what that relationship is all about. Things that people just don't think about, you know.
That's true, though.
How did we get from there to here? And then we threw the TV out of the window, because that is not what we do
it's more
at all.
More of the Keith Moon side of the game, I think, than the average story. But, you know, there's always been the knuckleheads that thought that was part of, you know, the Motley Crue's early days. And I love these guys. So we got a lot of history with them. But, you know, some of the early days, Ozzy was this way early in his career. They would get up to some naughty just kind of for the sake of naughty, and say they did. And, you know, it was kind of, it seemed like the behavior was kind of specific sometimes to the genre of music. So some of the metal guys tended to rock a little hard like that, and they did all the kind of cliche things that you see in movies, and some of them are exaggerated and not so much. But you mentioned Shoko. Did I hear Shoko?
We did a lot of
Showco is an extraordinary company, really early
really
in the big show company. You know, so Showco needs some credit. I always thought if you made it to Showco, if you got to be in the lineup with Showco, that you kind of made it in the early days of the game. Because that was like, they were the big dogs. I mean, that was...
They were.
Yeah, and so I was always... taken by Showco. You know, that for me it was the direction I was trying to go in. You know, you're coming up with Eddie Money and these smaller, the Smithereens and Greg Kinn and these types of bands like I did when I started. You know, that was where you were steaming towards. You were trying to make it so one day you could have Showco pick you up and you can go out and do the real shows, you know, the monster shows. So it's all fun doing the 15 and 20,000 seater ones, but man, when up that game some, it gets real fun.
There's that thing about, you know, you see somebody wearing a band shirt from a tour, and I look at the back of it, and if it doesn't say, you know, Claire Brothers, not Claire Global, but Claire Brothers,
early
or
days.
Showco Early Days, or an early Maryland sound, or even my favorite, because I'm part of that, the early Sound Image days where, you know it's an old shirt, right? You know it's an old Sound Image jacket.
Right. That's right.
It's like there's something, then you know these are the real people who put the show on, and the band and musicians who know also. Yeah. Like, these are the real deal. These are the guys, the pioneers, that really make this all happen for us. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think I was talking to you, Vince. It's like when somebody's trying to showboat to us, and they're like, oh, and this and that, and they're kind of bragging, and they don't know what they're saying. Yeah. And that's what was really extraordinary about running studio SIR rehearsals, was none of us knew that we were laying down history. None of us knew at that time, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, things like, Jan loves to tell the story about the Doobie Brothers. There were two of the Doobie Brothers who would come because they rehearsed during the day, and they'd come early because I had an espresso maker in the office.
Made you very popular.
And coffee was not a thing then. And so they'd come dragging in, and my office was at the top of this really long staircase, and they'd come dragging up the stairs, and I'd be doing books, and I would look up, and there would be these two faces, and I'd be looking up at them, and they'd be like, is the coffee machine working?
Save me.
When I tried her coffee for the first time, I'd be like, she had a Chemex.
Yeah, that's the exact response I have to coffee right this minute. The espresso would just send me through the roof. Yeah. Can you imagine me more amped up than I already am? It's no good.
Yeah. So do you know the story of us making our first case for Sound Image?
Well, you know, it's funny because it's about 3 questions away, but I wanted to, let's shift a little bit. Let's change gears. Let's talk about Jan and L cases. How did because I am interested in that. What was your first case order? Is the question I have.
Well, one of the first guitar, I can tell you this, the first guitar case that I ever made a template of, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, was for Carlos Santana.
Wow.
He had just been given this Ibanez, and at the time Ibanez was just coming into the business of making guitars. It was like an Ibanez
kind of a rare
Destroyer that was like supposed to be a Gibson Explorer. That's sort of like a copy, right? But he loved it, and it was free. Anyway, so I took a template of it while he was sitting around, and then had to send it in through the mail. They made it in LA and sent it back to San Francisco. And then in front of him, I had to put his fucking guitar inside, and it fit like a fucking glove. Ooh. And it was like, yeah,
you knew you were in the right game. You were in the right game. Well,
but anyway, so SIR partnered with some people and started a case company. So when I was up here, I like sold cases to like all the fucking people, you know.
And is that kind of where the transition started happening?
Yeah.
When did you decide to go out and you two start your company?
So what happened was, she told you the story about gotta leave to LA.
Yeah.
Well, they offered me a job to be a sales manager at the case company where the manufacturer was. And they had 4 partners, and one of the partners got me a truck and, you know, paid for the move and did all that shit. And then when I got down, they said, no, we don't need you. You know, and anyway, so it took a while before they called me and said, we really need you to sell. So I went to them, and then I got that call from England, from Bowie's, and then I left for 4 years or whatever. When I came back, I brought them to their first $1 million for a case company, and we worked a NAMM show, like the 4th or something like that, and after that NAMM show, they fired me, so I didn't have really a choice. So I said, well, I did. I could go to the bar, or I could go to Muffie, who was pregnant with Eric, our first child, and say, you know, we're going to start a company. And that's what we did. And so in 1983, we started a company.
February 1st.
Because this other company fired me for, they said they were bringing on family and I wouldn't be able to get along with them. And I said, fucking, I get along with everybody.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they just wanted to make that count.
Yeah, there was nepotism in the house.
Yeah.
And there was one problem.
What was
They
it?
handed him a box and they said, empty out your
Personal.
desk, your personal stuff. So he did. But his Rolodex was in the bottom drawer.
But
and
that
they
was
weren't
my
looking.
personal stuff, was the
They
Rolodex.
got your Rolodex?
No, we got the Rolodex.
Yeah.
A Rolodex, for those of you who are too young to know,
All the
is a
phone
card
numbers.
file with phone numbers, and it had
Awesome.
all their customers on it. And in 30 days, we had 40% of their customers.
So 38,
So
whatever
good.
it is, 38 years later or something, whatever it is.
They're gone,
And we're here.
and we're here.
Still killing it, still making
Karma,
some of the best cases in the
motherfucker.
business. You're the first people we call when we need a case. Simple as
Okay,
that.
so I was
how
going to
did
tell
make-
you.
What was the first sound image case you made?
Okay,
So who
so
called,
what happened
who called
was-
you up for this? Was this Dave called you or?
No.
No.
So here's what happened. So in order to get business, if you're a salesman, you just kind of try to get leads. So I was looking through some kind of industry, sound, whatever, magazine,
Sure.
and I see this Ramza, brand new mixer, and I thought they're gonna need cases for that big motherfucker.
Yeah.
WR8
No, you're
50,
talking about a monster
840,
console.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, in those days, consoles were just getting. I mean,
Big as this
it
desk.
ended.
Big
It ended
motherfucker.
with Yamaha. Oh no.
Yeah, I
we
mean, the
ended up with Yamahas that were as big as that desk and this case.
At the
Yeah,
time,
it's
the
like-
Yamaha
They were
PM1000 was like, that was the big deal.
That's
right,
At the
but
time.
they got way bigger.
And then, so this Panasonic came out, and it was colorful, and it did all. So I cold called them, and I got to Steve Woolley, who was the head of the sound, whatever, live sound or pro sound. He says, come on over. So I go over, and they go, we have this new thing here, make one. We're going to get it tested, and if it passes, we'll use you. So okay. So we made one, and they sent, and I gave you this video, so hopefully you can get this happening.
Yeah.
They sent it to Japan, to Panasonic Japan, and they tested it, and that's all I will say. And if you could show that video.
We will try to. I have a video of this, and I haven't yet to see it myself, but you described it
You
really
will
well.
fucking
It sounds
crack up,
hilarious.
you.
And yeah, it's exactly kind of what I imagine a bunch of Japanese folks trying to test a case for shock value and all the different things that it can deal. It's supposed to do.
Wait till you see this.
Maybe we can get Mike.
Compared to the tests that our cases are put through
Now,
by, say,
yeah.
a medical manufacturer.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Oh yeah, it's nothing compared. I mean, when they're
it's still
tested for
funny.
medical equipment now,
Yeah.
it goes through weeks of testing.
Really?
They shake it, they drop it, they spray it.
They put it in an oven for like 4 days.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So we had an egg drop test. We had our employees in teams, and they had to make a case and put an egg in it, and
Drop it off the
drop
roof.
it off the roof. And the winner would get a prize. And we were divided, I think, into 5
had a
teams.
lot of winners,
Five
though.
teams, and they all sent somebody up there on the forklift, and they threw their case off their little tiny, and they weren't Jan-Al cases. They had to fabricate these out of whatever, and make it so that their egg wouldn't break. And they were all different, and they None of them broke the egg.
was
Not a
incredible.
single
It was
one
cool.
broke the egg. They all created an indestructible egg case.
Well, that's pretty
So,
cool.
so finishing how the first case of sound image. So
Oh, yeah, right.
obviously we passed, right?
Okay.
So they order a few more and they go, this one needs to go to San Diego. And you only have like, once you finish it, you have to take it to this club and deliver it. And I took it to San Diego, and it was dinky motherfucking club, dinky. And it was for the Bus Boys. Do you remember
I
that?
love
That's
the Bus
who I
Boys.
was trying to
The
talk
Bus
about.
Boys.
The
Yo.
That's that
African
band I was talking
American.
about,
One of
Bus
my,
Boys.
I love
Right.
them.
Yeah.
And who was doing the sound? Sound Image. It was their case. That was our first case that we made
And
for
who
them.
from Sound Image was there?
It
You
was,
have- it's
I
probably
don't know.
Robbie.
No.
Robbie or David.
Could have been.
It has to have
But
been.
then, like,
Early days.
you know, maybe like a month or two later, Ross and David come to East LA and give us a visit. And it was like, what are you guys doing here?
Checking in on you.
So, and I remember one of the very first things we ever did for them, they ordered a bunch of racks, like, 10 space racks or something like that. And we didn't have a lot of time to make it. And we had a red pickup truck, and we loaded our son in his car seat between us and drove it down to them on Friday night.
Wow.
And Dave and Robbie were in shorts and Ross too, in flip-flops and T-shirts and shorts, and came out and helped us unload.
That was San
them.
Marcos.
It was in San Marcos. That's right.
This roadie thing, man. It's,
I mean, well, the whole company was like, they were in one of those, strip garages.
Yeah.
And they had like 2 of them. They had just expanded, I think, to 2 or 3 of them.
Right.
And they helped. Robbie and I were just talking about that.
Yeah.
it's amazing how far we've come.
It's
All of
really
us.
awesome.
You know?
It's really
Yeah.
awesome because
To watch kind of these
it's not
companies
just
grow
our
side by side. Like you
not
coach
just
up.
our customers. It's like you are a customer, but you're a friend.
Absolutely.
And that makes it so much. It's like that's we get up in the morning and we like are excited to get to work.
Well, tell me what the future holds for Jan and L cases.
We want to diversify in what we manufacture. Right.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna like bicycles?
Well, right now we came up with a cello stand. We came up with something that musicians can use in their little apartments and turn it up and record their amps. That we've done for you guys, but a consumer version.
Wow.
It looks like furniture.
Yeah.
You can crank. We've actually shown it to some people. Like, we had somebody come over, and he put his amp in there. We have them bring their own amp, because they know what it sounds like, and we have them crank it up to. Jan likes to call it 11.
Spinal Tap reference.
Yeah, and they put it in there. They put on headphones. They crank it up to 11, and then we have them take the headphones off and play. And it sounds like the volume that you turned your speakers down to today when I asked you if you could turn it down so I could hear you.
Yeah.
So the neighbors aren't banging on the floor or on the door or screaming that your wife isn't screaming that you woke up the baby or that she's trying to sleep.
Right.
And then while they were playing, we opened the lid so they could hear how loud they were really playing.
Wow.
And so we would really like to pursue that. And the stand that Jan made is really a neat stand because it can be expanded to fit a stand-up bass, but you take it apart and it's flat, and we're still trying to figure out exactly how to make it in its smallest. It's still kind of tall to fit in a case inside of a standard cello or bass case, but we're almost ready to roll it out because we've shown it to a couple of cello people and they love it because it really looks like classical musical instruments. And if you look at what cello people have, basically they've been given either really bulky stuff or something that is a modified guitar stand and it's metal. And when you have a classical instrument that costs thousands of dollars and it doesn't really fit, I think Jan's a genius.
So do I.
So do I.
Checks in the mail. So we're doing a lot of, we don't know what's going to happen. Muffie's working on getting younger people in there, younger talent, and it's working out. We're getting a lot of gaming. We're getting gaming companies that do these giant competitions.
Kind of crazy what those guys get up to.
And
billions
those
and billions
are our
of dollars of business
customers. We do a lot of sports, which we're going to continue to do. We have most of the sports happening.
Yeah.
Medical. We're doing a lot of stuff, but what we want to do is we don't know exactly what it's going to turn into. The Wright brothers, and look at 3M. It was a mining company, and now what do they do?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of companies that start out doing one thing and end up doing another with the advancement or with the different generations. And I think that that's what's going to happen with us. And Muffie's working very hard with our son to do that. And I think it's going to be incredible. And what we're trying to do with them is show them customer service and really a lot of design. We do a lot of design. I have to say one thing, and that's when I go into the NAMM show or something, for years and years and years, when we go in there, we feel cases are a dime a dozen, and you have nothing to contribute. And to carry that when you go into a place like that, everybody else is, they have these great technology and this and that,
Yeah.
And it took a long time to get over that,
Yeah.
It really did. But we know we do things that that help our customers in solving solutions. And
Creating
it could
solutions.
be super technical, or it could be super simple.
We're looking for projects. If you've got a project and you think we're a right fit, call us up.
Wow.
Because really, I think that the best things happen when people get together,
No doubt about it. It sounds like the future is bright. You got some cool things coming.
Yeah.
You guys do some of the best work in the business. You are not the everyday company. When I think cases, I think this is that myopic thing from a roadie point of view. We think all the aircraft cases are us,
Yeah.
But of course, like you said, I knew you had a large footprint with the sporting industry. This is something we've talked about in the past, with Dodgers and the different things. But it's interesting to me, the medical stuff and the different things.
The medical stuff is great.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It absolutely makes perfect sense in some of the display stuff that you mentioned with like Hard Rock and other ventures. So I could see that
And we've done a lot of steel.
Yeah, but exactly. And Jan's, working his magic. So it sounds like there's a lot of cool stuff on the horizon. Think we're going to see you next year at NAMM with some of these things?
If there is one.
Well, we don't
A virtual NAMM.
We don't get a booth, but our controller always gives us a pocket full of money to go wine and dine people.
Yeah, I know you're the best at that. You guys are so good with the expense account. I love it. Listen, I love you guys. It's really been interesting talking with you. It's so great to see you. You both look wonderful. Smiles, and I'm so glad that you're doing well, Jan. Thank you for coming on the show. I cannot recommend your company enough. I don't have things that I don't respect or want to do on the show. It's my show. I don't need to
do what you want.
Yeah, so I believe in you guys. I believe in your product. I believe in your company and your customer service. You believe in us, and we want to support each other. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you.
Thanks for putting up with us, Kyle.
That was amazing. I loved your stories.
Yeah, you're wonderful. Kyle is a very good young man. I'm very lucky to have him in our team with us. Thank you for being here. Love you guys.
Thank you.
Well, another wonderful interview. These people, I can't say enough about them. Listen, guys, I know I'm reaching out to a lot of different heads that make a lot of different decisions in this game, different shops, different bands, different things. I highly suggest you check. If you don't know what Jan L Cases is, you should really check in, baby, because they make some of the best product in the game. And, we can't do this without them. Now, there's some other guys out there. Like I said, I literally threw some cases off my set tonight because they were crap, and I'm not having it. So, again, check into them. And like Muffie said, if you got some neat project that sounds like it'd be a fit for these folks, reach out to them. They're all over the internet and easily to find. We appreciate you guys coming here tonight. Next week, we've got the wonderful, the one and only Toby Francis. This is the engineer to, Katy Perry, Kiss. He's done some of the biggest acts in the world. He's 40 years plus in the business. It's going to be a very interesting evening. We're looking forward to it. Please come and check us out every Thursday at 7 p.m. Until then, you guys be well, be kind, be good to each other. Have a good night.